Hi everyone and welcome to my sewing channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to reproduce this cute little wrap top with puffed sleeves and an oversized collar. I created these designs last year and I've made a winter version of it out of wool fabric. I've posted pictures of it on my social media and a lot of people asked me to do a tutorial for it, so this is what I'm doing today. I really wanted a summer version of this top with these short sleeves, and this time I used this wonderful gingham fabric that I bought at my local fabric store, but I'm sure you can find something similar secondhand. I saw a lot of red gingham fabric on Pinterest this season. To be honest, I love it and I thought it would be a really good association with this top. Plus, with the white collar and the lace, it gives a kind of western look that is very popular these times, especially if you pair it with a long tired skirt and boots. And for the collar, I used a cotton bed sheet and embroidery. So the project is quite simple. I think you can handle it even if you're a beginner, but I won't recommend it as a very serious project. You don't need to master a lot of techniques to make it. The only thing that is very tricky in my opinion is to put lace around the collar, since the corners are really pointy. So if you're a complete beginner, I won't recommend you to put lace around the collar. I suggest you to make just a really simple collar. Anyway, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put it in the comment sections and I will be really happy to answer. I think that this project can help you improve a lot your sewing skills. I will keep saying that, but if you're a beginner, don't be afraid to sew projects that motivates you even if they seem complicated. You will probably make mistakes, but I promise you that you will learn so much and you will be really proud of you when you succeed. If you want, you can make a mock-up to train and practice before doing a definitive garment. So for this tutorial, you will need 1.5 meter of the woven fabric of your choice. Eventually, contrasting fabric as I did for the collar, and if you want, some lace or embroidery for the collar as well. I made a free pattern for this project. You can find it in the Google Drive link that I've put in this description box. As for every other digital pattern, you will have to print it and tape it. I also added a size chart and printing instruction to help you guide. And the pattern includes a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. If not specified otherwise during the tutorial, always sew at 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Once you've assembled the pattern, you can move on to the sewing process. So the first thing to do is obviously to cut the fabric. The number of pieces that you will have to cut is indicated on the pattern. And you will also have to cut 2 rectangles of 72 × 8 cm for the ties. And don't forget to mark all notches where indicated in the pattern. It will help you a lot when sewing. You will notice that center back and front pieces are darts included, so make sure to reproduce it on the wrong side of the fabric with a chalk or an erasable pen. My technique to be precise is to put a pin at the tip of the dart and to draw a little mark where the pin is on both pieces and on the wrong side. Then I take off the pin and the pattern and I simply draw the dart with a ruler. Once that you've drawn the darts, it's time to sew it. The first thing to do is to pin it, so make sure that the both lines that you've drawn are aligned. When the dart is pinned, you can sew it, starting from the edge of the fabric to the tip of the dart. To avoid bulking, I recommend to not backstitch at the end of the seam, to leave long threads before cutting, and to tie a knot to secure. Then you can hide the thread by tucking it inside the dart with a needle. Then you can iron the shoulder darts toward the sides and the burst darts toward the bottom. We're going to assemble the back pieces together. First, overlock the curved parts of the sides and center back pieces. And to be sure you're not losing notches when you overlock the piece, my tip is to simply draw a line that goes few centimeters away from the notch, so I will still know where it is. Now, put side and center back pieces right sides together and pin along the princess seams that you have overlocked. Notches will help you to align it correctly along the curve. Next, sew the princess seams and pay attention to not create small pleats at the most curved points. So you just have to take your time. You're doing amazing. Now, open the seam allowance with your finger. You can also iron to help you with this part. And put the bottom back piece on top of the back piece. Then pin, sew and overlock. You will have to do just the same with the front pieces. To keep the seam allowance in place, we are going to fold it toward the bottom piece and to sew it on the right side at 2 or 3 mm from the separating seam. This technique is called top stitching. Repeat the process for front and back pieces. Then overlock the sides of front and back pieces and don't forget to mark notches. Put the front and back pieces right sides together at the shoulder, sew, then overlock. Now we are going to form the cuffs. Put 2 cuff pieces right sides together and sew at the bottom. Now, to make sure that the inside of the cuff doesn't show when you wear the top, we are going to use the understitch technique. To do so, fold the seam allowance towards the inside piece of the cuff, lay the cuff flat right side up, then stitch on the seam allowance on the lining parts at 2 or 3 mm from the assembly seam that you made before. To create the puff sleeves, we are going to gather the top and the bottom of the sleeves. To gather fabric, set the stitch length to the maximum. Then sew 2 lines of stitches on the bottom and on the top of the sleeves between the notches. The first lines has to be sewn at 0.5 cm from the edge, and the second lines at 0.75 from the edge. Don't backstitch at the beginning and at the end, and make sure to leave long threads to be able to pull on it to gather the fabric. Now, we need to make sure that the bottom sleeve and the cuff match. Catch both bobbin threads and gently pull on it to create gathers. Take your time to create harmonious pleats and gather until the bottom length matches the cuff length. Once that is done, pin the top of the cuff and the bottom of the sleeve right sides together. Then sew it together and overlap. follow the seam allowance toward the cuff and top stitch. Lock the sides of the sleeves. You can hide the threads by tucking it into the overlocked seam with a big needle. Now we will create the gathers on the sleeve cap to match the length of the armhole on the bodice and to create the puffed effect. Pull on the bobbin threads until the sleeve cap matches the armhole. Once that is done, pin everything right sides together. I put notches to help you. Be careful because the sleeves have a front and a back side. The double notch indicates the back and the single notch indicates the front. So make sure that you put the sleeves the right way. Once that is done, you can sew and overlock. Now we can sew the side seams, but first you will have to choose a side where you will leave a small hole to be able to pass the tie through and create the wrapped effect. One side seam will be entirely sewed from the cuff to the hem, and the other one will be discontinuous. I chose to leave the hole on the right side, so I will just sew from the cuff to the first notch and from the other notch to the hem. Make sure to align everything correctly together, and again, take your time. You've made a great work so far. To keep the seam allowances in place around the hole, I will top stitch all around it on the right side. Make sure that the seam allowance is open and sew all around the hole at 2 or 3 mm from the edge. Now we are going to prepare the collar. If you want, you can cut a piece of embroidery that measures the circumference of the collar plus 15 cm. To help you later, mark the 1 cm seam allowance on the corners of the collar. Then, place the lace on top of the collar and identify where the corner is. Mark it on the lace. On the mark, measure 7 cm and fold the lace on these 7 cm. Draw a line that goes from the mark to the edge of the lace. Sew on this line. Then, draw the 1 cm seam allowance on the corner of the lace to help you place it on top of the collar. Pin the corner of the lace and the corner of the collar together on the marks you've created. Then, pin the lace all around the corner using the seam allowances marks you've made before. Then, continue pinning the lace along the collar until you reach the second corner. When you reach the second corner, repeat the process. Identify where the corner of the collar is and mark it on the lace. Then draw a 7 cm mark and fold the lace. Sew from the mark to the top edge of the lace. Then draw the 1 cm seam allowance on the lace. Pin the corner of the lace and the corner of the collar together and finish pinning the lace on the collar. Now we are going to sew the lace on the collar at 0.5 cm from the edge. Before reaching the first corner, pull the lace towards you. Continue sewing until you reach the middle of the corner. Then stop your machine, lift the foot with the needle into the fabric and turn your work. Push the lace backwards and continue sewing. Repeat with the second corner. Repeat the same process. Continue sewing until you reach the middle of the corner. Stop your machine, lift your foot, push the lace backwards, and continue sewing. Now put the other collar piece on top of the first one, right sides together, and sew all around at 1 cm. Make sure that the corners are matching. When sewing on the corners, make sure that the lace is inside of the collars and that you don't sew in it. You can feel it with your finger. For a cleaner finish, trim the corners and iron the collar flats. Now we are going to place the collar on top of the bodice, making sure to align the notches and the shoulder seams. Fold the shoulder seam allowance towards the center back. Now sew all around at 0.5 cm from the edge. Now let's make the ties. Take the long rectangle you cut and fold it in half. Sew the rectangle at one of the small edges and all along. Then trim the corners and flip the ties right sides out. To make very pointy corners, you can carefully insert your scissors and gently push into the corners. Iron the ties to make it flat. Next, place the ties on the front pieces between the right angle part and the notch. Sew at 0.5 cm from the edge. The back and front facings right sides together at the shoulders and sew. Overlock the seams and overlock all around the facing at its outer edge and at the bottom. Overlock all around the hem of the garments. Place the facing on top of the bodice, right sides together, and sew all around. Now, trim the corners. Now we are going to overlock all around the seam. You will have to do it in 3 times. First, from the bottom straight to the first corner, then all along the neckline, and finally, from the next corner straight to the bottom. Now let's understitch the facing to make sure it stays in place and doesn't show where the top is worn. If you remember correctly, you have to fold the seam allowance towards the lining and to sew on it close to the separating seam. You will have to do it in 3 times again, from the bottom straight to the first corner, then all along the neckline, and finally from the other corner straight to the bottom. You won't be able to sew properly into the corners, so when approaching it, go as far as you can, making sure that you're only sewing on the lining and that the seam allowance still faces the lining. Fold the bottom of the facing on the bodice, right sides together, pin and sew. We are going to finish with the hem. To do so, fold the hem on 1 cm and sew. You can sew directly into the overlocked edge. Very last step is to sew the shoulder seam of the bodice with the shoulder seam of the facing to keep it in place. Put the seam allowances together and sew just a little stitch. Congratulations, you're done with the project! Okay guys, I hope that you liked this video and that you have succeeded making this little top. If so, I would love to see what you've done. So don't hesitate to tag me on Instagram with pictures of what you made. I will put the link to my social media on the description box. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe because I think I'm gonna do a lot of other tutorials. Anyways, I'm going to let you enjoy the final result. See you next time and happy sewing!